Welcome to the Empowered Birth Blueprint Masterclass, and I'm so happy you're here. So I know one thing about you already is that you want to have a natural birth as natural as possible, and you don't want to get tricked into interventions, C-sections, inductions. You don't want to crumble under the pressure or give up on your dream. Maybe you are already thinking, this is my last baby, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this natural birth, but I'm going to do everything I can to try because I can't have a C-section again. Or maybe you're a first-time mom who maybe you've already seen other people keep having C-sections and inductions, and that's not your game. That's not what you want. Or maybe you're still kind of looking at your options. You're not pregnant yet. You haven't had a baby yet, but you kind of are already gearing towards the natural route. You know that you don't want the epidural. You know you don't want the induction. You know you don't want the C-section. You might even be thinking, I'd kind of like to have a home birth. And if that's you, then you are in the right place, because let me just tell you, I have experienced all these things. Okay. I was a first time mom. Before I had kids, I was kind of scared of birth. But at the same time, I was even more scared of the hospital and the interventions and the C-section and the induction and all of that. I was terrified of needles. And like, when I got pregnant, I'm like, you know what? I'd rather give birth at home. And even when I was a little girl, I thought I wanted to give birth at home. And it was because of how my family had presented birth to me that I started to go the other direction and think I'd rather have a C-section. But then I realized, like, no, I actually hate surgeries. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I don't want to be in the hospital. So within my first pregnancy, I'm like, you know what? I'm planning a home birth. And then as a first time mom, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know if I was going to handle the pain very well. And I didn't know if my tiny little hips were going to be able to push out this big baby that my mother-in-law had said ran in the family. And I didn't know if I would actually be able to do it. And then with my second, I had already been tricked out of my home birth. So I'd been planning the home birth with my first, but I got tricked out of it. I'll tell you more about that story later. But in the end, I was like, I'm not doing this again. Like, there's just no way that I'm going to get tricked out of my true natural birth experience again. This is what I've also helped a lot of moms to see. And if you're here, then I'm just going to show you that true natural birth and natural birth are the difference between regular ice cream that you get from an organic dairy farm, that you know all the ingredients and you know that the cows are all grain fed and you know that there's no preservatives, versus the store-bought and preservative laden chemicals that you can't pronounce version of frozen dessert masquerading as ice cream. That you see the picture, it looks like ice cream, but if you don't look at the label, it says frozen dessert. And you don't realize that until you bring it home. It's like, this isn't ice cream. But the medical system and our birth culture perpetuate that as natural birth, and true natural birth as it doesn't exist. Okay. Like, they think it doesn't exist. They act like it doesn't exist. So I'm going to share some secrets with you. So let's get started, shall we? Because I know that you want to stay on time. And I know that, like, you're busy, you're a mom, you're probably watching this training late at night after your baby has gone to bed, or you're trying to catch up after being at work all day or running a business, an empire of your own. And you're trying to get that few minutes in. Maybe you're watching this in bits and pieces, which it's okay if you do that. I just want to make sure that you do go through the whole thing, because all of this stuff builds on each other. And if you don't have all of the pieces, you're missing some of the puzzle. So before you ask, yes, there is an offer. No, you don't have to take it. Although I do really highly recommend that you do, because what I've been able to teach my clients at the higher levels has been phenomenal in what it's allowed them to have in their birth experiences. We're talking about moms who maybe had a 15% chance of success with a VBAC, who managed to have a true natural birth. We're talking about moms that had 2 C-sections and had been induced with their first and never went into labor with their second and had another C-section, who were told that they couldn't have a natural birth because they had 2 C-sections, and then they go and do it at home. We're talking about moms that are too old, too fat, too tiny, too skinny. Like all of these things, you're told these things and you believe them and you go for that natural birth in the hospital. And oftentimes it ends in a C-section, an induction, birth trauma. There's no accident that there's a 45% reported birth trauma rate. So I just want to make sure that if you are sitting in on this training, that you are actually going to take notes, that you are going to implement what I teach you, that even if you don't work with me any further, that you make sure that you are actually taking these lessons into your birth. Because if you just come in here and just get the information and then go, oh, cool, that was an awesome training, and then you don't do anything with it, I'm sorry, but I've seen it happen way too often with moms I've given this information. They didn't listen, they didn't take it, and they ended up falling into what I call the natural birth traps. You can read more about that inside my book, Your Empowered Birth. In chapter 2 and chapter 3, I talk about the natural birth traps. And I also go over it in the introduction and a little bit in chapter 1. And what you really need to know is that I made a whole lot of mistakes with my first birth. And I was consuming natural birth information constantly. Like I was going out and I was reading all of the natural birth blogs, even the crunchy ones. I was in the mom groups. They didn't have the Facebook groups, but they did have the mom forums. And I was on every single one of them for the bump and baby center and what to expect when you're expecting and all of them, all of those pregnancy forums. I was on them and I was in certain forums looking for information, and I still got tricked out of my home birth. And I hired a doula and I had a midwife and I was taking birth classes and I still got tricked. Okay. So I want you to understand that even if you think that you know a lot about birth, if you've been reading books like Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, or maybe you've been watching Bridget Taylor on Instagram or YouTube, or you've been following other birth influencers on TikTok, maybe you already had one or more babies and you're like, oh, but I already know how birth goes. I'm telling you, there is so much more. And even when I am coaching my clients to have these natural birth experiences, I'm seeing things in a deeper way that most of mainstream is not catching. Okay. So I have had a lot of experience now. That's not to say I'm an expert. Okay. Because I also believe that you are the expert on your birth. So even though I have a lot of knowledge and wisdom, I also want you to recognize that you need to trust your own intuition on this. And that's what I really teach about the natural birth blueprint and everything about my empowered birth system, which I call the 5 pillars of empowerment, because they don't just encompass birth. Birth is a metaphor for life. If you're in my Facebook community, the Empowered Birth community, then you probably have already seen my fear traps training. It's getting past your fear. It's called Your Fearless Birth. And I talk more about the empowered birth system and how it helps you. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about that in this training as well. But I want you to understand that when you have an empowered birth, you're an empowered mom for life, and nobody can take your power away from you again. In fact, I've used the same method that I'm going to be teaching you about the empowered birth method and what you really need to understand in order to get out of an abusive and toxic 13-year narcissistic relationship where I had been gaslit every single day and I was very codependent, and I got out of it. And I was a confident single mom raising my kids, who were very high energy kids who had also gone through a lot of trauma. I raised myself out of literal ashes because I had a house fire the same year that I was trying to leave my partner the first time in 2019. It didn't take, but the next year, even through 2020, when the world shut down, I was biding my time to get out. And I managed to build a business in that time. I recognized my true power as a coach and childbirth educator. I wrote the first draft of my book that same summer. And then by 2021, I was already coaching clients. I had my first few clients. You'll hear about their stories during this training. And not only that, but I got out of that toxic relationship. I started to achieve more than I ever thought possible, connecting with some very, very high level people who brought me into their world and showed me more secrets to success and have really been a stand for my dreams. So now some of my best friends in the whole world. I healed my codependency. I was able to go forward and be happy being a single mom. And just every single day since I found the community that I'm in now, and I started teaching and I started actually implementing my own system and realizing that what I'd created for birth could be used and applied in other areas of my life, everything has just gotten better. But it really started with the spark of having that experience of my first child and realizing what was really going on and pulling back the curtain, becoming a birth advocate. So this has been a 10-year journey. So I became a birth advocate, and then I had my empowered birth with my daughter. And that is when I started to see everything in my life that wasn't working. And then I started to slowly change it. And I've seen this happen with my clients as well, where they take the things that I teach them, they have their empowered births, and suddenly their lives are transformed. So you're not just getting birth training today, you're also going to get a roadmap for a more empowered life. Because I don't just teach about birth, I also teach about creating your most powerful, authentic, fully expressed life of your dreams. In fact, I'm working on another book right now as we speak that is going to be allowing you to have a more empowered motherhood and more empowered life as a woman with the same empowered birth system. But before that even happens, you can just go and get a copy of your empowered birth and start to see, where does this apply in other ways in my life? And you can always ask me questions. My email is carly@empoweringmomsbirth.com, or you can just reach hello@empoweringmomsbirth.com and someone on my team will help you. Okay. And of course, you can always connect with me inside of the Facebook community. So if you're not part of the Empowered Birth community, I'm going to invite you now to come in and start talking with us, because we're going to be doing amazing things in 2024. And we are going to continue to do incredible work when it comes to what this empowered birth system is going to be. So I'll tell you more about that later, but first let's get started. So this is your empowered birth blueprint, how to get your true natural birth and avoid falling into the biggest traps that lead to cesareans and inductions. So first I'm going to ask the question, why do so many moms start out planning a natural birth, but then they end up throwing the birth plan out the window? I see this all the time when I'm talking to a newly pregnant and first-time mom, and I ask her the question, hey, so have you thought about what kind of birth you want? And I get this answer more often than not. Sometimes I get the other one of, oh, I'm definitely getting the epidural. I'm definitely going to have all the drugs because I'm so scared of the pain and I have a low pain tolerance. In which case, she's got some work to do in understanding what is needed and like to understand that birth is actually not that painful. It's the medical interventions. You'll hear more about that later. And I'm going to teach you as I tell the stories. So then mostly I get 90% of them say they want to have a natural birth as natural as possible. But in talking to them and hearing how they talk about it, I can see they are going to fall into multiple natural birth traps if they do not look into this further. If they think that they know everything because they got a birth class or they got a doula or they got a midwife or their doctor, more likely, when it's like, I went to my OB and my OB says, as long as nothing bad happens, I can have a natural birth. So I trust them. I am about to show you the truth. Okay. So brace yourself, because I don't sugarcoat. I will tell you right now that this is a dangerous, dangerous trap to believe when you are planning a natural birth. To think that just because you have a midwife, just because you have an OB that says that they support natural birth, just because you hired a doula, just because you're taking childbirth classes, just because you read a book or two, that you're going to have that natural birth, because I've got some truths for you that are really hard to swallow, but I'm also going to tell you the secrets to fixing that situation. Okay? Remember, I told you I got tricked. So I want to make sure that you don't get tricked, because it sucked. I thought I knew everything. I'm like, I'm really smart. I researched for a long time and I still got screwed over. And why did this happen? And I really dug deep. Okay. So have you said or heard these phrases? I don't go into labor on my own. I didn't dilate. My pelvis is too small. They won't let me, or I'm not allowed, or I'm high risk. I have to. If you've heard these things, then let me just tell you, they're lies. So who am I for those who don't know me? And I mean, if you do know my story already, if you've been following me for a while, then you already know I'm a childbirth educator. My name is Carly Bonderud, and I have been coaching women for the last several years, about 3 years now. I've been doing it professionally, but I've always been a coach in some area of my life. It's kind of like just one of those things that I just do. And I'm basically a birth healing and transformation women's empowerment coach. So I have 10 years experience helping women get past their fear so they can plan and get the dream natural birth and prove that their bodies work. Because I know fear like the back of my hand. In fact, my family was very much trying to scare me out of having a home birth. And I was the one that was sitting there being like, I'm fine. Like, there is no way that you're going to talk me out of this. And even after I did get tricked, I was able to map this because I also have a little bit of a background in psychology. So I understand about the psychological concepts, and I'll tell you more about that later. So I'm a mom of 2 high energy kids. They're both age 10 and 7. They're going to be 11 and 8 this year. And I'm the author of Your Empowered Birth. That's the blue book behind me right here. And I also write romance novels for fun. So I've been writing since I was old enough to hold a pencil. I've always loved to teach through story. I've loved to write my stories, and I love to convey emotion and get into the experience of something. So even with my book, Your Empowered Birth, it's not a typical birth book with a bunch of information. It's information taught through story. So if you don't have a copy yet, it's actually a really fun, easy read, and it will help you to get the birth that you want. You can also go on my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/chapter, and get the 5th chapter of the book, which actually has the empowered birth system in it. And it also comes with bonuses as well. And the last thing about me is that the way that I run my life and the way that I run my business is I love to go to the beach. And as soon as the warm weather hits, I'm just like, that's it. I'm not going to be going on podcasts. I'm not going to be recording anything. I am just going to be out there. And if I have 1 or 2 clients, I'm using the messenger, but I'm not teaching at that time. So that's why a lot of my stuff is pre-recorded. And that's why a lot of the stuff that I give you, it's like you get the overall of the system. I give as much to you as possible. It's mostly self-study with actual help from me. So you got to do the work with me. And all my clients know it's like, you got to do the work, and then we'll meet once a week and we'll discuss what I've taught you. And I give them so much. But in the summertime, and of course, when my kids are home from their vacations, things, I do like to work my business around my family, not work my family around my business. So I just want to be very, very clear about that. That's why I'm doing this. It's why I'm teaching this class, because I want to make sure that even though I don't work with everyone, even though I'm very intentional about what I'm doing, and even though I don't take everyone into my programs either, and you'll hear more about that later if you do have any curiosity about that, I still want to get that information out there because it wasn't available for me when I was having babies. And a lot of the women that I've helped, they have had devastating birth experiences before they found me. And they're like, you know what? I really wish that you'd been around when I was having my first baby. I never would have gone through that. And it's like, no, you wouldn't have, because I would have helped you. And then there's women that are in their 60s and their 70s who hear about what I'm doing. And they're like, I really wish you'd been around when I was having my babies, because now it's like too late and I have to heal all this birth trauma. And like the stories carry. So birth isn't just one day in your life. It actually, like, it sticks with you. That's why this is so important. That's why I'm going to encourage you to tell other people where to get this masterclass so that they can go through the training as well. And to encourage you to also tell them about my YouTube channel, my Instagram, Facebook, wherever they need to go to follow me. I want that because I put a lot of education out there for little or no cost at all, just so that it's out there, because it wasn't available at all. And that's why I got tricked. That's why I ended up having birth trauma. And that's why I've worked so hard now for 10 years to help women get past their fear and get out of it. So, why is natural birth so hard to get? If you have read my book, Your Empowered Birth, then you already know it's because you're falling into the natural birth traps. And if you don't know what the natural birth traps are, there are lists on my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/freebies. And you can look at the cesarean traps and what not to put in your birth plan and what you want to do if you're having a true natural birth in the hospital, what to do if you're going to have a VBAC. Because again, I really don't want you falling into those traps. I fell into some of them. I've seen my clients fall into them, and I'm constantly warning people away from them. But there's some problems here with understanding that these traps exist, and that's because you don't see them coming. And here's why. But first, I'm going to tell you what is going to be in this class, because I know it's long. I understand. I know you'd rather watch something that's only 20 minutes long and maybe even less than that, but you're not going to get the full effect of the education if you're just like binging on tiny little bits of videos. This is one of the problems with our culture right now, where you have all these birth influencers out there, and they're great. I love them. And, I put out little bite-sized pieces of my content out there too. But if you're trying to piece this all together and just being like, oh, I just get all my information off of YouTube, or, oh, I just get all of my information off of Instagram or TikTok videos, and they're 3 minutes long and they're just perfect. It's like, no, there's so much deeper. So I'm going to share with you the biggest mistake that moms make when planning a natural birth that leads to unnecessary medical interventions and birth trauma. I'm going to share the biggest misconception about how to get a true natural birth and what you need to do differently. I'm going to share you 5 things that you need to optimize to get the birth you really want. I'm going to share with you the secret technique that gets your partner to know how to advocate for you without having to read a bunch of birth books or watch a ton of videos, because they don't really want to do that as much as you think that they do. It's too overwhelming for them. In fact, I've had partners actually say, it's like, like she sends me all this stuff and I want to support her, but I don't know where to start. And then there's the ninja master move that gets your care provider to stop pushing back on your birth plan and actually support you. Because it's great that you have all of this information, but then you have to try to convince your care provider that you know what you're talking about. And they've got 10, 20 years of experience in birth. And they look at you like, you got that off of Dr. Google, didn't you? Or you just got that off of some silly birth influencer. Well, I know more than them. And then you feel kind of crushed from that, because like, how do I get them to take me seriously? I'm going to show you how to do that. So first of all, I'm going to share with you the 3 truths, and I'm going to teach to you through story. And the truth number 1 is that your body is designed to birth. This is what a lot of birth influencers also say, is like your body is designed to birth. But what does that actually mean? Because so many people get this wrong. They're like, oh, well, my body's designed to birth, so I'm going to go into the medical system and it's just going to do it. And I'll share with you why that's not true in a minute. But first, let me just share my story. I told you there were going to be positive birth stories, and I meant it. There are positive birth stories. So this is my empowered birth journey, okay? I am 5'4", and I'm 110 pounds soaking wet. My babies are almost 21 inches long and almost 8 pounds. And I have a small pelvis. I got tiny little hips. So with my first baby, I was pushing for 3 hours in the hospital, and I was told he was too small to birth at home. And he came out almost 8 pounds. With my second baby, I was determined to have a home birth, and I had to stop and start labor over several weeks. And I actually ended up sending the midwife and the doula home after 24 hours when labor stopped again. Now, this is because I was feeling a lot of stress and because the midwife gave me a cervix check. So you can actually read this story inside of Your Empowered Birth, or you can go through my Fear Traps training that I have inside of the Facebook group, because I do actually go into a deeper version of this story, but I just want to stay on time. Okay. So I also wanted to let you know, like with this, when I had my cervix check, because labor was not seeming to progress, I was 6 centimeters. But then I reversed back to 3 centimeters and my labor stopped. So I sent the midwife and the doula home because she basically said to me, okay, well, look, if you continue to go this route, you're going to end up, we're going to have to transfer you. And I'm like, oh, we're not transferring. So I said, oh, I guess it's another false start. And I sent them home. So after 16 hours of rest, I went back into labor and I decided I'm not calling anybody back. Anybody that's going to call the hospital and say a birth is in progress, I'm not getting back on that clock. So I decided that I wasn't calling her back until I was pushing. I did call my doula, but she was already really tired. She'd been with me for 24 hours. I said, look, all I need you to do is keep the pool warm while my partner and my son go to their swimming lesson. And then she went home again because labor wasn't really progressing to the point where I would feel that I needed her. It was very mild. And so I'm like, okay, I'm probably going to have my baby in the next 2 days, but this pool feels really good. And like contractions are kind of like spaced out. They're not close together. Like I get one every 7 minutes and then it spaces out to 10. And then it goes to like 2 minutes apart. And then they go back out to 7. And like, they're not very strong and I can really still move through them. So it's fine. Go home. And then at about 10 o'clock at night, my partner at the time, he is like, can I go to the store and get some liquor? Cause I'm out of beer. And I'm like, yeah, go to the liquor store and get your beer. I don't care. I'm going to do my thing. And I'm thinking at this point, it's like, things really aren't picking up. I think I might go to bed after he gets back because he'll have to help me out of the pool. But I think I'll take a Gravel and I think I'll take like a Tylenol and I'll go to bed and I'll sleep a little bit longer. And that's when I had the mother of all contractions. And he rushes in the door at just the right moment and he puts his hands on my shoulders, but then he walks away after I finish the contraction. He calls his mom and he's talking to his mom on the phone. And then he's also texting the doula off of my phone and saying, hey, things are starting to pick up again. So I'm sitting there laboring in the pool and he's talking to his mommy and he's also texting the doula. And he's like, I don't know if I can do this. And like trying to get her back. And suddenly I have another mother of all contractions and he's not there. And I feel a jet of water just hit. Like, it's just like out, like it hit my clit basically. And I'm like, whoa, well, my water just popped. And he's like, you popped the pool? I'm like, no, my water broke. So in contrast with my first baby, where I had been tricked out of my home birth and told that he wasn't growing properly and that I would have to have him in the hospital. So I went to the hospital and I had the gas and air and I was basically just hoping to escape. And they pulled me from the tub and they put me on the bed and they had me basically pushing for 3 hours because according to them, I was already dilated. So I should be pushing and I should be getting him out. And they said, if you don't get him out, the OB is going to cut an episiotomy. And I'm thinking I'm going to have a C-section to this suddenly, like, I think I'm going to get out of the pool. I'm bored. And suddenly, whoa, pressure. And then it just, the water's released and there's the head. It was super fast. As soon as my waters broke, my daughter was out within 10 minutes. My partner was able to only get the midwife there just in time. My daughter was already crowning. He had already seen the tips of her ears, and then he went outside into the driveway, waiting for the ambulance that would be backup in case the second midwife didn't arrive, because that was part of our protocol. So the paramedic comes in and he's just sitting off in the living room, and the midwife is supporting me. And then my daughter is out, like nobody touches me. She just like shoots out like a little torpedo. And it was like 10 minutes and she was just out. And I didn't do any pushing. Like my uterus did all of the pushing. And I'm like, I did it. And it was like, this was even less painful than in the hospital. Like I'd already been able to handle the hospital birth, but this was just incredible because I had been in a complete labor trance. I didn't even think I was that far along in labor. When I had all that pressure, I thought, I don't want to do this for another 8 hours. This must be them picking up. And now it's going to be more intense. And in the end, it was like, no, you're done. That was a 2-minute transition and baby's out. So again, I had like the transition and then it's like 2 contractions. And then all of a sudden out comes baby girl. And she is just so calm in contrast to my son, who they had pulled him out. So his head came out, and like, because they said, if you don't push him out right now, I could feel myself stretching. I knew I was going to tear. And I'm like, I have a choice here between tearing a tiny little bit and it's not going to be that bad, but I know it's going to happen, versus them actually cutting an episiotomy because they're being impatient. And I'm like, I'll tear. And I didn't even need stitches because I already knew. It's like, I just needed to be able to stretch that last little bit, and they wouldn't, like, they were just, when you're flat on your back like a turtle, it's kind of hard to do anything. And when you're in that kind of pressurized environment, it's kind of hard to do anything. And you're going to learn more about that too. I'm going to tell you a bit about that in a minute. But in contrast to that, with baby just shoots out like a little torpedo. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, she's here. I just did it. I had a completely unassisted labor. Nobody touched me. And the midwife didn't even touch me until like she just pulled the baby from the water and put her in my arms. I'm just looking at her. It's like, I did it. Like, I did it. Like, this is like, I did this all by myself. I did this. This is so incredible. The only regret I have to not having anybody there was that I don't have any pictures of the look on my face. That must have been just absolutely ecstatic, because I've seen it in my clients. They have this ecstatic look on their face with this amazement that they've been able to do this. Whereas with my son, he'd been squawking and crying because they pulled him from me. And that was the most traumatic part. It's like after his head was out, they just did the thing to quickly rotate his shoulders. And it was just so fast. And it was faster than what my body actually wanted. And I remembered that, in contrast to my daughter just sliding out. I'm like, oh, okay, the head's out, so it's going to be a little minute for the shoulders. And midwife's like, I don't think so. It was like, shoulders, and out she comes. Like, my body just did it. It was phenomenal. So your body is designed to birth. Okay. So we need to forget that you won't know how to push. Your body will show you how to push. And if you're not pushing in that moment, it's because it's not time to push. When the hospital tells you it's time to push and you don't actually know that it's time to push because you don't feel it, there's a reason for that. And when you're feeling the stretching and they're telling you that you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing through it, and like, you're going to tear because they aren't letting you listen to your own body. And you have now been told, my instincts are wrong. With my son, I wanted to lean over the bed, and they're like, no, get on the bed. And then they put me on my back. That's not what my body instinctively needed. When I was in the water with my daughter, it was different. because I was leaning forward for most of my labor. But then as the surges were coming and I was feeling her pushing down, I actually noticed, like, if I stay in this position, this isn't going to work because it's too high up and I'm going to have a high tear. So I need to actually lean back more. But I also ended up tearing a bit. It was, again, not very bad. And I only needed one stitch on each side and it was nothing at home. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. But the reason for that, again, is because the medical system has this idea that you need to have your legs wide open, but your instincts might tell you to close them a little bit. And that's okay. Maybe that's what your body needs. So when you are following your body and the medical system is like, no, 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 do it this way instead, they're actually screwing up your physiological process and your instincts. Your instincts are more powerful than whatever they think is supposed to happen in the textbook. So then you end up getting an injury, or you end up hurting your pelvic floor, or you end up stalling your labor, which is why I don't like cervical checks, because in the wild, animals don't have cervical checks. If your cervix was meant to be checked, it would be on the outside of your body, not the inside. So all of these things that are being done leads me to truth number 2. The medical system isn't trained to facilitate a true natural birth. And the more high risk you are labeled, the more they can't support you in that, because they really don't understand it. They don't trust it. And when they don't trust something, that's when things go wrong. And nobody encompasses the high risk mama more than Jenny, my partner and best friend. She runs the Birth House Network. She also has a t-shirt place on Etsy, a t-shirt shop called Empress Birthworks. She also has other things for birth workers who are looking to expand their business and have some branding. She's doing some amazing things there. So she's basically built 2 businesses since she started working with me. She didn't have either one of them until we started our Empowered Birth workshops. She's also like a partner in the Empowered Birth system, empoweringmomsbirth.com. And she has taught on mindset trainings. She also brings a lot of the insight when it comes to if you do have high risk issues, like maybe you have gestational diabetes, maybe you had a traumatic C-section, maybe you had an induction, maybe you have preeclampsia, maybe you had high blood pressure, maybe you're over 35 and you've been told all of these risk factors. Well, Jenny actually had a 15% chance of having a VBAC after having what had happened to her before, where she had gone into the medical system in a community that doesn't even do VBAC and completely misunderstands physiological birth. And she was basically told her whole pregnancy that she's high risk. And they were more concerned about it in the medical system than she was. And in the end, what Jenny did is she not only advocated for herself so she didn't get induced and she didn't get pushed into intervention she didn't need, and she wasn't getting bullied by the system when it came to medical testing. And she had gestational diabetes, so she went to the gestational diabetes clinic and she asked what the odds were and that she'd avoid having insulin. And the nurse said it's about 50%. And Jenny's like, well, I'm going to be in the 50% that don't. And they're like, go, good luck. It's not going to happen. Well, Jenny did it. She figured it out. She recognized that the medical system doesn't really know what they're doing. They just keep following the same protocol and they put you through this cookie cutter system, how they think it's going to work. And if you do have complications, well, that's because your body's broken and that's why. So they have that excuse. But there are no more excuses because Jenny showed up in labor. She actually used a lot of mindset techniques to go into labor on the day that she actually wanted to, which is incredible. I still am just blown away by how she took the little bit of mindset that I taught her, and she's just gotten so much deeper with it. So if you're having any questions on how to do that, talk to Jenny. But she had an unassisted VBAC in the hospital and she caught her own baby with the help of her doula and her partner. And the nurse at the time, when Jenny came in 1 hour before she was going to have her baby, the nurse is like, I need to do a cervical check to see if I need to call the doctor. And the doula is like, you need to call the doctor. The baby's coming. And she's like, well, I won't know until I actually see. And it's like, no, you're not touching her. And she tried to check the heart rate with the Doppler, and she couldn't find the heartbeat because the baby was already down in the birth canal. And she's still like, I don't understand. I need to get your blood test. I need to draw your blood. Jenny's like, you're not taking my blood. And she's like, but I need to take it because otherwise, how will I know what your blood type is if you need a C-section? Like, this is how messed up the medical system is that they can't even recognize a physiological birth as it's happening right in front of them. They are so focused on profit, convenience, liability, and their checklists and their protocols and their routines, and crossing all of those dotted lines and saying, you know, I've done all this and I charted this and I need to know the cervical dilation to add to this chart. It's like, when you say no, I don't want that, then they're like, but I have to fill out the chart. It's like a kid who is so much more focused on making sure that they get every single answer right, or at least filled in on the test, that they're rushing through the test without actually getting the right answers. Because like, but I have to finish the whole test and I need to put in all of the things, even if I don't know the answer. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to spend all this time on this question instead of skipping over to the ones I know. I'm going to stay here because I have to get it all in order. If I leave something blank, it's not good. I'll be bad and wrong. So that's how the medical system looks at it. Like, if I leave something blank, if I don't cross all of these things off my list, it's bad and wrong. And so when you're saying, no, I don't want that, you need to recognize that they're used to giving that as a whole package. They're used to giving the birth as a whole package of like, this is the medical birth package. And this is what you do for the VBAC package. This is what you do for the moms who are 35. This is that package. And you go through the package. And we don't know how to break up the package and give it to you individually. No, we don't know how to do that. So we're just going to drop the whole package on you. And you're just going to go through it. And when you say no, we're going to remind you again that, oh no, we have to do this package. We have to do the whole package. So this is why when you're coming into planning your birth, you need to create your own package. And Jenny did that. She created her own package. So when they handed her their package, she's sitting there like, yeah, actually, this is my package. And this is what we're working with. And how are you going to support me in that? And then she was going through her list of what she wanted. And Jenny actually has created a birth plan template that works magic. She's also got it on her Etsy shop, and you can get it as a bonus through Your Empowered Birth as well. So it comes with a birth plan mini course. So if you haven't gone through that, I really encourage you to. That's why it's free, because I want to make sure that you're creating your birth plan first, like Jenny did, and then you're taking everything that you need to add to understand your education. So you're not going through the cookie cutter birth package. So now I'm going to give you truth number 3. Our society and culture has been brainwashed to fear and distrust birth. This is why when people are creating those birth plans, they're often asking the moms in the mom groups, does this work? Am I missing anything? Please stop doing that. Please stop asking random questions about which birth classes to take. Please stop asking random questions about what birth books to read. Please stop asking random questions of what OBs are recommended, or what midwives are recommended, or what doulas are recommended in your community, because everybody has a different view of how they want their birth to go. And most of society and our birth culture has started to think that birth is dangerous, that babies die, that the reason why babies died way back in the old days was because we didn't have hospitals, instead of recognizing the truth, which is that if that was really the case, humanity would have died out a long time ago. But we've forgotten that. So because our society and culture has been brainwashed to fear and distrust birth, and you see it in all of the TV, you see it in a lot of education, you see it in the way we have treated doctors like gods who know all, and that when we are questioning something, we are the wrong ones here because we should just listen to the doctor. A healthy baby is all that matters. You need to let go of that. Okay? And I've actually got something for you that will help you let go of that. Just stay tuned to the end and I'll let you know more about that. But the thing is that you've been brainwashed. And it doesn't matter how much birth education that you try to cram in there, you are still dealing with that brainwashing. And you're still trying to filter out what's true and what's not. So let me just tell you the last story, which is about Rebecca. Rebecca, when she came to me, this was when Jenny and I were starting to run the Empowered Birth Workshop in 2021. She had already learned from me what was really going on in our current medical system in our area, because she and I had both birthed at the same hospital and she had been screwed over. And I had already been doing this for 8 years. I'd been doing this since 2014 and I met her in 2020. And she had said I had a traumatic experience at this hospital and she was in a local mom group and she had said those words. And I'm like, oh, girl, you need to come over here because I can't speak freely in this group without them all swarming you. And you've just been traumatized. Well, soon after that, we knew that there were going to be other moms in that time who were looking for a VBAC. And Jenny was in a VBAC group looking for those moms. We were building our Empowered Birth Workshop. We were teaching it for free. And she found Rebecca. And Rebecca had had a previously traumatic induction that had been turned into a C-section where the OB had basically taken her, like she'd been 18 years old at the time. Like she had just been told, you have to induce. And Rebecca went with it. She induced. And of course, things got worse, as they tend to do. And she ended up being told at the end, like she was probably having, like she was sleeping, she said, I was asleep. My partner was asleep. And the OB came in and she just tossed scrubs at him and said, get up, Dad, we're doing a C-section. And so Rebecca had her first C-section. And then after that, she's like, I didn't like that. I want to have a VBAC next time. So when she was pregnant with her second son, she actually was trying to have a VBAC and she did all the education that she thought that she could to have a VBAC. And then they said at one of her appointments, your baby's not doing so well. It's time for a C-section. And they just wheeled her in. She then got her birth records through learning about the empowered birth system and what I was teaching her. When she came to me, she was pregnant with her third. She was about 25 weeks along. And she was told by them, like, it's going to be another C-section, but she didn't want it. She didn't want a third C-section. She wanted a VBAC. And when Jenny had found her and said, hey, you can actually have a VBAC. I know somebody. Rebecca was like, oh yeah, I'm coming to this training. She was like 3 days into the training. She watched all of the videos and she recognized like, I could do this. And so she reached out to me because she's like, I don't want to have another C-section and I need your help. Here's my birth plan. And she showed me her birth plan. And she had also been told that her body mass index was too high and she was high risk and all these things like, oh, you might have GD, but she didn't have gestational diabetes. It's just like, just because you're bigger, you'll probably have gestational diabetes. So really trying to point that out to her. And she's like, I don't believe any of that. I'm not getting tricked again. I'm not going to have a third C-section unless I really need it. And so she handed me the birth plan. I looked it over. I asked her, it's like, do you even want any of these things that you're listing in your birth plan? She had some of the typical natural birth traps in there, like the IV, continuous monitoring, and like, she said as few vaginal exams as possible. I'm like, do you want any vaginal exams? Like, I'd like to not have any because they suck. I'm like, well, you don't have to. And she's like, I don't. I'm like, no. And it's like, do you even want the IV? No, I don't want the IV. I think I just have to have it just in case I have a C-section. I'm like, you don't have to have the IV if you don't want it. It's like, I don't. I'm like, no. And I'm like, do you even want to go to the hospital? And it's like, no, actually, I'd rather have a home birth. I'm like, well, you can have a home birth. It's like, I can. And I'm like, well, yeah, let me ask you a question, Rebecca. Like, if you went into labor and you got to the hospital just in time, and they just get you into the room just as you're birthing your baby and the doctor's not there yet, what happens? She's like, well, I guess somebody else catches the baby or I catch the baby. I'm like, yes, exactly. So now let's backtrack. And Rebecca, if you were going to get to the hospital, but you didn't get to your room in time and you were birthing in the lobby, like what happens? She's like, well, I guess I birthed my baby. I'm like, exactly. So now you're in your car and imagine you just pull into the hospital parking lot and you birth your baby. She's like, yeah, I guess that would probably happen. That could happen. It's like, okay. So now you're driving along the highway and you have to pull over to the side of the road. And what happens? She's like, well, I guess I birthed my baby in the car. And I'm like, okay. So now let's backtrack even more. You're going to your car and you suddenly have the contractions and your baby is coming now and you're in your front yard. What happens? It's like, well, I guess I birthed my baby. I'm like, okay, now we're going backtrack again. And what happens if you birth your baby at home accidentally? And she's like, well, I guess like people, if I really need help, they'll come to me. I'm like, exactly. So then why not just stay home? And if you need help, you can call it in. But if you don't have to. And she's like, I could do that. It's like, I mean, you can always find a midwife, but you don't need them to be there the whole time. Like you heard my story, you know that I called my midwife at the last possible minute. So they don't have to be there your entire labor. They can come to you at the end. And she's like, I could birth my baby and just call them and they can't actually risk me out of having a VBAC. They can't say I can't have a home birth because wherever I am, I'm going to birth. And like, yes. So that again ties into what I said with truth number 1. You are designed to birth. And with truth number 2, the medical system is not set up to support physiological birth. So with the natural birth blueprint and what you really want to focus on when you're having a true natural birth experience, especially if you're going for a VBAC, you don't want to medicalize your VBAC because that is going to lower your success rate. This is why Jenny was able to have her VBAC even with a 15% success rate, and all of her high risk labels that were put on her was because with the empowered birth method, what we do is we create our birth plan first, and it's aiming for a true natural birth experience. And then we have our backup plans. So Rebecca knew she had backup plans. She's like, if something changes, I've got my empowered C-section plan. And I also have my plan in case I choose to go to the hospital and be back. And I know what I'm going to accept and what I'm not. And I've trained up my partner and he knows what we're going to accept and what we're not. We've even got it in our plan prepared for if I'm out shopping during the day and we end up having a car birth, we're prepared for that. But we're getting this pool and we're setting this up and we're going to have this home birth. And this was the first birth that I actually attended virtually. So I sometimes do this. I don't do this often because it's time consuming and I want to be with my kids. But for a larger amount of what I charge outside of coaching, I might sometimes attend births via Zoom. And this is what I did with Rebecca. I was on Zoom with her. She called me, I think it was about 4:00 in the morning. And she's like, my water's broke and I'm having contractions and it's time. So I set up the computer and I got on with her and her partner. They had already set up the pool and she was kind of bouncing on her yoga ball as he was setting up the pool. And then when she climbed in, she was still kind of talking to me. She was kind of talkative and she was just kind of excited. And then at one point it shifted because there's 2 different ways of labor. There's the early labor. It's like, oh, I'm having a contraction and I'm moving around and I'm talking. And then suddenly you shift into your trance and you go inward. And this is the moment when you're not actually feeling the pain anymore. Instead, you're riding the waves. And I could tell when Rebecca was riding those waves. And I could tell, and I would give her suggestions of what she could do to keep riding those waves. And she would get to a point when she hit her transition. She was okay. She was doing it. She knew what she needed to do. She was moving around. She was getting out of the pool. She was getting in the pool. She was doing her thing. She was moving her hips. And her partner was the one who's like, is this normal? I'm like, this is normal. This is normal. This is why you hire a doula, because the doula needs to be able to hold the space for your partner. It's not so much you, it is your partner who will freak out. So you need to have your partner in that space of being the rock for you. And it's like, I've got this. Otherwise, they panic, especially in the medical system, and they give in. Like my ex-partner, he actually came into the room. He knew I didn't want to be on the bed, but he also panicked because we're now in an authority place and he doesn't know that they're going to do this thing. And he's like, oh, you're trying to get her on the bed. Oh, she needs to get on the bed. Where do you want her? And he just picked me up and got me on the bed. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten on the bed. Well, with Rebecca and her partner, they were at home. Nobody was there. It was just him and her doing this beautiful dance together. Like he could see when she was needing his support and he would squeeze her hips or he would go and get her some water. And it was just incredible. And then when she started pushing, he's like, oh, she's pushing. Oh, here's the baby. And he caught his third son. He caught their baby. And he said after that, not only did we reclaim our birth experience that we had been robbed of the first 2 times, but we just saved $30,000. Because as you know, if you're in the US, birth is not free. Birth in the medical system costs thousands and thousands of dollars. Maybe you're worrying about insurance, but I'm also going to share with you a little secret. If you are scared, it's like, if I try to do a home birth, the insurance won't cover it. All right, here's the secret. If you can prove by already having your home birth, which is not that expensive when you think about it, it's really not compared to the C-section, the induction, the medical interventions, the fact that they even charge for Tylenol, the hospital stay, the medical staff, all of that they charge through the insurance. If you can show just how much those insurance companies save by supporting your home birth, as opposed to the medical system being super, super expensive, they will retroactively pay it because they would much rather pay that than pay for all of that other stuff. If you look at it from the perspective of them, why are the insurance companies in business in the first place? Is it to give tons and tons of money to clients? No, they don't actually want to give you money. They don't actually want to do that. They don't want to shell out thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. That's why the insurance companies right now are like, oh, this won't be covered, because they're looking at as this catastrophic outcome will cause us to get sued. So therefore, we have to say you can only see these care providers. You can only do this thing. You can only go to these hospitals, because they don't understand true natural birth. They have also been indoctrinated in the culture of fear. And so with Rebecca and her partner, they actually saved $30,000 and they didn't have to pay out of pocket for their insurance. And they didn't have to worry about getting tricked by the medical system. They didn't have to worry about dealing with that stress and pressure and having another C-section. Instead, they had the most empowering, beautiful birth experience possible. And I'll tell you more about the medical system and what you can do, all the loopholes. All you have to do is email me if you have any questions. There's some stuff in Your Empowered Birth, and I teach this on YouTube, and I teach this through my free masterclasses, and I also teach this inside of my programs at a deeper level. So the thing is, you need to understand is that Rebecca wasn't paying for information. In fact, I was giving her all of the information before she even decided to work with me. What Rebecca was getting was a customized, tailored experience to what her values were, what her partner's values were, what their family dynamic was, their personal challenges. And I was going through and I was finding those times where they were like, oh, we're scared of this. And where they were saying things like, we have this limitation. And I was customizing their empowered birth journey to see how are we going to make this work. And that is why I don't work with everyone, because that is a deep, deep dive. And that is also why even in most of my programs, I do self-study, because I want you to have the overall system so that when I'm like, okay, bring me your homework. Okay, you've had these answers. You've come up with these insights. Okay, now I see the path that you're trying to get to. And I see what you're doing, and I can find this and try this. And I can coach you through a fear that you have or any doubts you have, but I'm not having to create the whole experience for you, because the truth is that you create your own experience. And when you read your empowered birth and you do the self-study through that, you're also like, oh, I can see this map. I can see what I need to do. And then you ask the questions in the group and you can get support from the moms who've already done it and found the births you have. So I'm going to teach you about the empowered birth system and what it really does and what it comes up with. But first, I'm going to share something else with you. So the thing is that, as I said, Rebecca and Jenny, they got information. Everybody inside the empowered birth community gets information. Everybody on my Instagram channel, everybody on my YouTube gets information. Information is like so out there. Like I will scatter this all out into all of my trainings. I will put that out into the world in my bite-sized content. This is why I encourage you, if you're not following me on social media right now on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, please do. Because not only does this allow you to get the information that you need, but it also boosts the algorithms so other people can find it easier and get it. And if you're sharing it, that is even better. Because if you're sharing it, it's going to counterbalance all of that mainstream stuff that I talked about. It's like indoctrination of fear. This is how we get the right education out there. Because as I said, information alone won't do it. You also have to have the empowered birth system. The reason why the empowered birth system is so powerful and why it also encompasses other areas of your life as well is because you may want to have an empowered birth, but if more than one of your beliefs is in conflict, you may struggle to take action. If you don't optimize these 5 things, any one of them can derail your birth plan. And I recognized this even when I was building my business, because for years, people had told me, you should charge money for this. This is a service. This is needed. And I was too afraid to get out there on camera. I was too afraid to speak. And you're getting a lot of information. Imagine if I had stayed afraid and never put out what I knew. Imagine if I'd stayed in my abusive relationship and he had continued to crush my dreams, because before I left, he had basically tried to get me to stop doing what I was doing. I was about to teach my very first empowered birth workshop, and he was telling me that because I was supposed to be doing my job as the housewife and I was leaving the house a mess, that I needed to choose. And I actually asked him the question, like, are you telling me I need to choose between my business and my calling and staying in a relationship with you? And he said, well, if that's how you want to put it. And I'm looking, it's like, oh, that's an easy choice. You're now in the way of my dream. You aren't just sabotaging my self-esteem. You are in the way of my dream. And this is the same thing with care providers. If you are being told, if you don't have this induction, we're dropping you from care. That is them basically saying, you have to choose between your dream birth or working with me. That's what they're saying. Okay. So choose dream birth, no pain or no intervention, no horrible trauma, or keeping me as your care provider. You have to choose. You have to choose between your dream birth and going to this hospital. You have to choose between your dream birth and staying at this birth center. You have to choose between your dream birth and working with this midwife. You have to choose between your dream birth and insert other thing you're worried about. Like maybe it's that your doctor won't be the one on call that day. Well, guess what? With the empowered birth method, we don't care about any of that because we have got our plan so perfect in our minds that we have our backup plans and we know how to handle every single possible scenario that comes up. You don't have to choose between your dream birth and working with somebody and having support. You can have both. And with the empowered birth system, you do optimize for that. So the first thing I'm going to tell you, though, about the empowered birth system is the secrets. The first secret of the empowered birth system is you get out of fear and you trust your intuition and your instincts, because the medical system, of course, operates on fear. Our birth culture operates on fear, and it's fear and distrust of your ability to birth. You now understand that you can birth your baby. You now understand what is in the way truly is not your body's ability to birth. And it's not that you didn't prepare enough in your body. And it's not that you didn't get any education it's not that. It's not that your body's broken. It is that you're afraid and you need to trust your intuition. And if you haven't gone through my fear training, Your Fearless Birth, inside of the Facebook group, I do encourage you to check it out. It's in the guide section. If you're not part of the community, make sure you join, because that's where you're going to get a lot more of what I teach out there for free. As I said, information is free. Okay. I don't charge for information. I charge to come in and do my magic with you and help you to get where you need to go. Or I charge for a program that is going to also have that element where you can actually message me or message my team and get actual support. So even with my courses, I don't just say, here's a course, good luck to you, and off you go into the sunset. And I don't care if you get any results because I've got your money. No. If you're going through my course, I want you to have success. So if at any point you're having a struggle with the course and you're like, you know what? I don't understand something. I want you to reach out for help. Okay? I want you to have success. I did not create all of this to make a bunch of money and just coast off of things. That's what the medical system does. And I'm not putting up with that. I'm doing this because, first of all, this is my livelihood. This is what I want to do. This is how I feed my children. I use the empowered birth method in other areas as well. And it's the same thing. I want moms to get those results. I want them to transform their lives. So if you're going to buy a course, you have to promise me that you're actually going to go through that course. Okay. If you're not going through that course, don't buy it. Okay. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you're not going to actually read your empowered birth, don't buy it. Okay. Don't buy it if you're not going to read it. But if you are going to read it, please buy it, read it over. If you have any questions, write them down, ask inside of the Facebook community, because that is there to help you. Okay. And I want everybody who gets the courses and programs and books to be in that community for support. This is not a flash in the pan thing. I've been working on this for 10 years. I saw what was happening and I'm like, we need to get out of fear and trust our intuition, because I overruled my intuition and instincts that told me my son was fine. I overruled my instincts that said something's not right here and I should just speak up. And I didn't speak up. But with my second, I started to see the same thing starting to happen, and I spoke up and I made a decision. It was I knew, because the midwife was like, okay, baby is still not coming. And you've been going in and out of labor, And she could go into distress at this point with how often you've been going in and out of labor. And labor is now stopped. So I've already put you on the clock at the hospital. They already know. We have two options here. I either go home and close this file and we say it's a false start. And if you go back into labor and you call me, I'm going to have to assess you. And if you're not where we need you to be, we're going to have to transfer you to the hospital. And they're probably going to want to break your water and induce you to get things going. Or we keep going as we are, and I'll assess you again in 4 hours. And if you're not where we need to be, we're going to have to start thinking about something. Well, that was really scary. And she's also saying things like, well, sometimes interventions are needed and it's okay. And, you did as best as you could. And she's trying to make me feel okay with something I'm definitely not okay with. And my midwife the first time had also said that. It's like sometimes babies just are too small and they need to be induced. And, here, talk to this mom who had an induction, who wanted to have a natural birth, and she was robbed from her experience, but she's okay with it because her baby needed to come out, but she was a really crunchy mama. And I had that conversation with this mom, and I'm like, I don't want to be this mom because that was her only chance to have a baby. And she was basically strong-armed into having a C-section. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. So I tuned in and I said, how is my baby doing right now? She's like, well, right now her heart rate's fine, but that could change. And I'm like, I think it's a false start. Go home. And I didn't call her back until it was like the baby's head's like there. So I didn't call her back until I was pushing. So you've got to trust your instincts and intuition. Can't give in to fear. That's why that fear training is so important, because I also talk about the fear traps that you can fall into and how to get out of them. And there's also some information inside of your empowered birth. And I also have a deeper dive into how to get past fear. Like, this is something that I really know a lot about and I've helped people with. And I want to help you get out of your fear and trust your intuition. Secret number 2 of the empowered birth system, and why I have the 5 pillars of empowerment, is to stop letting other people tell you what's allowed and you become the birth visionary. Now, the birth visionary is a term that I kind of coined, but I also took it from a friend of mine, Annie Lala, who talks about being the relationship leader. So in this aspect, I actually learned from a true love and relationship coach who understands how to help partners out of conflict without shaming, blaming, making them wrong, without having any resentment. And they actually fall more in love with each other and have like better sex from this, and they feel closer. So they are more likely to work together and come up with a better solution than if they were both on opposite ends. And I took this concept and I use it in training my clients how to not only enroll their partner into their dream of their natural birth, even if their partner was kind of like, I'm kind of scared of home birth and I'd rather you in the hospital. With this trick, this magic, they are suddenly on the same side and on the same team. This is how Rebecca and her partner were able to have that beautiful dynamic play out, where he just had this. He just knew what to do. And I've seen it with my other clients too. Recently, there was a mom and her partner. They came to me when she was 35 weeks. She'd been told that she was going to have another C-section. She'd had 3 kids before, all C-sections. She didn't want a 4th C-section. And she had binged on my content on YouTube. I had some videos on 3 C-sections and how she could have a VBAC. And she binged on that. She booked a call with me. She worked with me right away. We had basically 6 weeks to turn this around. And the medical system was so controlling, like to the point where they were even harassing her when she was in labor because she wasn't coming in. And she did end up intuitively going to the hospital just to see what was going on with her baby because she'd had a very long labor. But in the end, even though they kept trying to push her into a C-section, because of what I had taught her and taught her partner, they held their ground, and she had her VBAC after 3 C-sections. She made history in that hospital. So when you become the birth visionary, you have the audacity to believe that what you want is possible, like Jenny did, like what Rebecca did, what my other client did, and what I did, and what moms have done in my community. When you have that audacity, then you are enrolling them into your vision. Okay. So you don't let them tell you what's allowed. They don't tell you what's possible. You tell them, this is what I'm working towards. Are you in or are you out? And now that leads to secret number 3, which I talked about earlier, which is you need to create your birth plan at the beginning, and you need to begin with the end in mind. Just like Stephen Covey says in that book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you need to be the birth visionary, and you need to already have like your vision of how this is going to end right into your postpartum, and how you do that. And then you reverse engineer it to see, okay, what steps do I take? Okay. So that's overall what you do is you have to believe that this is possible. You have to get past your fear so that you can see that possibility, because that's step number 1 is you need to get past your fear and start trusting your intuition so that you can have that vision. Once you have that vision, then you create the plan based on that vision. Okay. So that's the ideal birth plan. And again, if you go to my website, empoweringmomsbirth.com/birth plan, or just go to the extras, empoweringmomsbirth.com/extras, you will get the roadmap to create your birth plan. So now that you understand a little bit of the secrets of the empowered birth system, I'm just going to ask, what would be possible for you if you could have a natural birth free of fear, anxiety, or overwhelm, and where you could make all the decisions on what you will or won't allow with confidence, where you can feel completely confident in saying no to anything you don't want, whether it's your care provider, your partner, family, and friends. You'll be able to just be like, this is what I'm working towards. Are you in or are you out? That is the empowered birth system, how to create your dream birth and have it any way you want. Now, this is also, as I said, the 5 pillars of empowerment. You can see the pointed star with the different colors. These are my 5 pillars, and you can create your life any way you want. When I was deciding, as a woman who has like been severely abused and treated badly, not physically abused, but mentally and emotionally, which is actually worse, because it's like, it would be better if he hit me because then I would have seen it. But I didn't see the bruises. I didn't see the scars because they were all in my heart. And they were all in my mindset. They were all in parts of my soul. And I didn't realize just what was going on until I started to recognize I could have my dreams. Somebody else pointed out to me that I could have my dreams. And when I saw that and they were so similar to me, I'm like, I can do this. I can have all of my dreams. I don't have to go and work 3 different jobs to be able to survive and give up all of my dreams just to get out of this relationship. I can leave this and I can thrive, and my kids can thrive, and we can actually build our lives better than when we were with him. And I don't have to choose. So the empowered birth system allows you to choose you, allows you to choose your dream, and then you have the roadmap to get it. So that comes with the right mindset. You challenge the attitudes, behavior, beliefs, and everything else that doesn't serve you. You acquire new information that outweighs the old beliefs and fears. You reduce the importance of the negative beliefs and attitudes. You surround yourself with positive birth imagery and stories. You see yourself as the decision maker and the expert on you. And you believe that your dream is possible even when everyone around you tells you that you can't do it. Pillar number 2 is the right education, learning about your rights of informed consent and refusal. Like Rebecca realized that she had options and rights. You learn about all of your options in birth, not just the menu options your care provider, family, friends, and social media would have you think is possible. You learn the true birth physiology outside of a hospital setting with true natural birth. You seek birth classes outside of mainstream hospital systems. Don't get classes from nurses. Seriously, stop doing that. Every time I see courses offered by nurses, I'm like, oh, hell no. So you also want to read birth books written by midwives, doulas, and independent childbirth educators. You do not want the books by nurses or doctors. In fact, there are a few of them, a few titles that if you show me the book, I'll be like, get rid of it. But don't put it back in circulation. Don't send it to a Goodwill place. Destroy it. I won't say which ones, but they are really good paperweights. Or if you're going to be a birth worker, they're very helpful in seeing what the mainstream traps are, just so you recognize that most of the mainstream society is reading those books. You can be like, oh, that question. Oh, that one. And you can spot it. If you're going to be one of my Empowered Birth ambassadors, which if you are inside of the Facebook group, you might already know what that is. If you don't, just email me. Basically, it just means that you're out there spreading the empowered birth system and method just because you believe in it. You don't even have to really like invest too much into it. But like, if you want to be an actual ambassador, there is a training program. But if you don't, if you just want to be like, hey, this was really awesome and helpful, and I want to tell more people about that, but I don't want to like do it at a bigger level, then you can just share this. Seriously, like after you're done this training, you can go and say to your friends or in the mom groups, I just saw the most amazing birth training ever, and you got to check this out, and then just drop the link. Or I just watched this YouTube video, go check it out. Like just spread it. Just spread it. As I said, information is like abundant in this community. I want it out there. I'm not going to get mad at you for spreading my secret of the empowered birth system. I want it out there. Okay. I want this out there because I don't charge for the information. I don't charge for my secrets. What I charge for is for me to come in and actually fine tune it and come up with my insights based on what you're telling me. So again, feel free to share this anywhere. Okay. So you really want to read those good books though. And of course, your empowered birth is also the right education. Finally, the right environment is number 3. Right environment, you need to feel safest to let go of all your inhibitions. If you wouldn't have sex there, you probably won't be able to birth there effectively either, because birth and sex are actually tied together. This is one of the secrets that I mentioned when I invited you to check out this training, is that actually, in order to have a less painful birth and to be able to be like, I didn't even notice that I was in transition until like my waters were about to release, it all ties into the same things that you would do during sex. Okay. So I made sure that lighting was low. I made sure everything was quiet. I made sure that the sounds I was making were like deep guttural moans and keeping my mouth wide open, and I was taking deep breaths in, and I was riding the waves, and I was recognizing the sharp peak, and I was pushing that energy down. And yes, birth is a sexual experience, and I have told my clients, the partners of my clients as well, I've said, she is going to sound like she is having an orgasm or close to it. And that is going to be like, it's going to be jarring because you're going to be like, is she in pain? Is she in pleasure? Like, what's going on? But that's what it sounds like. And the medical system, again, is very, very uncomfortable with the idea of birth being sexual. In fact, they have done a lot to try to make it not sexual. So when birth went into the hospital, instead of being at home, the sexuality was the first thing they stamped out of it. But if you look at a woman in labor and you see how she's moving and you forget the fact that she's in labor, oh, it very much looks the same. In fact, go check out orgasmic birth. And that is one of the mindsets that I needed to shift when I was still afraid of birth. because people would tell me that an orgasmic birth was possible. And I'm like, yeah, right. But it's possible. Okay. So here's the thing though. If you hate being watched, if you are definitely not the kind of person that would have sex with your partner with a whole big audience, then you're probably not going to be enjoying being watched during labor. You're a mammal, and mammals do not give birth where they feel threatened or perceive a real threat. And the right environment, it can be the hospital if that hospital can support physiological birth, and if you have your team that's going to leave you alone. So that's why Jenny was able to do it. She waited until the last minute to go to the hospital, but she also, her doula had set up the environment. It was dark. She had the lights and she had it all nice and peaceful, and she was keeping the nurse from doing her nursey thing. And so Jenny was able to ride the waves and birth her baby. If they flick the lights on, birth doesn't work. So that leads to pillar number 4, the right facilitators. You need to choose a care provider who supports your birth plan before you hire them. Okay? This is why I say you create your birth plan first, and then you come in and you're like, this is what I want. Are you in or are you out? If you do that at the beginning of your pregnancy, you got more time to find the right care provider. If you're bringing your birth plan to your care provider at the very end of pregnancy to have them sign off on it and discuss your birth plan at 35 weeks, like most moms have done and what you see in the mom groups, doesn't work, because now they're looking as like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. No, we don't do that. No, we don't do that. No, we don't do that. You might be allowed this. You might be allowed this. That's absolutely not. No, no, no. And then what do? Now you're scrambling to find a new care provider, and you're going to give birth in a couple of weeks. Maybe you give birth at 42 weeks, but that's still only 6 to 7 weeks that you have left to try to figure this out and to turn this around. And it's so stressful. You don't need to do that. If you hire your care provider at the beginning and you're like, here's what I want, and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I haven't actually done this before, but yeah, we can try that. Like Jenny's care provider, he'd taken one look at what she had done with her appointment, and he called her up and he'd said, I know you wanted to apply to see my partner in this practice, but can I be your doctor? Like, he wanted to do it. He wanted to support her in it. You want somebody who is actually like passionate about a true natural birth and will actually bend the rules for you to have it. Like my midwife did. Both of them. The one that attended my birth with my son, she bent the rules as much as she could. And she had told me that I could have had a home birth. Like she said, you can have a home birth. And I was already afraid. And I said, no, it's already 35 weeks. It's too late to plan the home birth. And she's like, I'll make it happen. And I'm like, no, it's okay. My partner is afraid. So I'll do it. I'll stay in the hospital. And she was probably thinking, oh, I really hope I'm the one to support her that day, because nobody else, that girl is going to get a C-section. But she fought for me. I wasn't actually supposed to be allowed to push for 3 hours, but she bent the rules. She kept the OBs outside my room as long as she could. And it was because she was 2 years away from retirement. She's like, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to tell her what's happening. And then she knew I had birth trauma afterwards. And she also told me, don't go back to this practice. They don't trust birth. Find a holistic practice. So not all midwives are created equal. You need to do your homework and interview them to spot any potential red flags. There's midwives and there's medwives. You need to choose a childbirth educator who teaches the kind of birth you want to have. Many just teach standard hospital birth with interventions. As a result, you're going to end up with interventions in your birth. I went the cookie cutter route. There was a birth class, had 20 moms in there. They all wanted natural births. That's why they were there. And in the end, when we had our graduation, guess what? Out of those 20 moms, only 2 of them had natural births. And one was true natural birth, and the other one was natural birth. And the one that was natural birth, she was induced. She had an episiotomy. She had a vacuum and forceps delivery, or vacuum extraction, I believe it was. They didn't use the forceps, they just used the vacuum, but still, that is still traumatic. And it pulls at the poor little baby's head and it leaves a mark. And it's just, no. So basically, she had an induction, hurt, and she was able to get in the right position. She ended up having the epidural, and she ended up baby getting stuck, and baby had to get pulled out with vacuum, because when you interfere with birth, stuff happens. The true natural birth was me. I showed up at the hospital 12 hours like before my baby was born. I didn't let them do vaginal exams except for one that they suspected I was in transition. I was only 7 centimeters and I had the gas and air, so I didn't actually feel it. And I was in the birth tub and I was just in my space and I wasn't letting anybody do anything to me. So I had a natural birth in the sense that it was physiological. I didn't have any major interventions, but it wasn't the full experience because I had trauma from it. So if you're going to choose a childbirth class, you really need to be careful what's being taught. Next, you need to also choose your doula based on how you need to be supported. Now, I love my doula. She was awesome, but she was not the right support and facilitating for me because she's very hands-on. As much as I love her and appreciate her, when I wanted to just do my thing with my second baby, she was still mindful of the fact that I had had difficulty before. And she's like, this home birth is happening. But she was getting me to get out of the pool when I wanted to stay in it. And she was getting me to do all these exercises. And I just remember at that point, I know that the midwife was there. And I know that she was just trying to get me to beat the clock and get this baby out. But I had been thinking, I just want to send everybody home. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's probably partially why my labor slowed down and eventually stopped. So you need to have the right support for your facilitators. And that leads to pillar number 5, the right support. So the people closest to you can influence your birth in positive and negative ways. So you need to evaluate whether they are supportive of your birth plan or if you have to keep convincing them that you can do it. You deserve to have people who believe that you can actually do this. And anyone who's trying to scare you into accepting something you don't want to will not be the right support. These are the ones that are like, well, what if something happens? Maybe you should just do what the doctor says. You know, you're a first-time mom, or, you know, you've already had these traumatic births, so you probably shouldn't do this again. And here's the thing is your partner, if you have one, needs to be on the same page and recognize you are the expert on your birth. They can't tell you, I don't want you to have a home birth, I'm too scared. They can't tell you, I'd rather you have the epidural. I don't think you should go through that pain. They can't tell you things like that. They can't tell you to just listen to your doctor. They have to be able to believe in you. And if they don't, they're not the right support, which means you have to train them up. And finally, you got to stay out of those mommy shaming groups. Unless you're going to go in there intentionally to gather information and you know which groups you're in, you could possibly be bombarded with the natural birth traps. I see this all the time. I'm in the mom groups. This is probably how you found me, is I was in a mom group or somebody was in a mom group who said, go check this out. But I see this all the time. This is why I created the Empowered Birth community in the first place, to be the anti-mom group, in the sense that it's not a mommy shaming group. We don't do shame, but we also don't do misinformation. We don't do censorship of information that will tell you, question your doctor. Like, seriously, if it doesn't feel right to you, there's probably more going on. Always trust yourself over what anybody else is telling you, including me. If I tell you something that doesn't resonate, leave it. Okay? I'm only imparting my information, what I know, but you are your own best expert. So here's the thing. Now, I did say I do have something, okay? So for anyone who does want to work deeper with me or get one of my programs, this is the part for you. If not, you can jump off if you really want to. And I'm really grateful to have you here. But before you jump off, I'm just going to let you know that even if this isn't right for you, it might be right for somebody else that you come into contact with, and it might be beneficial for you to just know what's out there. But I don't expect you to jump in on this if it's not right for you. In fact, if it's not right for you and you try to enroll in my program, I'm going to actually say, this isn't right for you. And here's something else that will help you better. And good luck to you. Because as I said, I'm not in this to just be like, here's a program and bye-bye. And I got your money, so I'm good. No, I want this to work for you. Okay. And I can tell you right now that if you try to do this on your own, it's going to take you a lot longer than if you do work with me. So I do want you to know that if you are trying to do it on your own and you're a self-starter and you think that you can do it, absolutely go ahead. Go get my book, Your Empowered Birth. It's on Amazon. It will help you a lot. Make sure you also take advantage, though, if you're going to try to do this on your own, you have to binge on all of the videos because it all builds on itself. Make sure you're reading every single email that comes into your inbox. Make sure that you are following actively in the community. Make sure you are following social media every single day, and make sure that you are asking your questions inside the community. And you can try to piece this together yourself. But you know what? The fastest, easiest way to get more for the little limited time that you have is to have somebody help you. And that is something I discovered in my own life. So option number 2, you can learn the full empowered birth method that is proven, reliable, easy to implement. And I am also giving you direct support as I'm coaching you through your empowered birth journey. And that's the Empowered Birth Academy, which is allowing you to create your dream birth, and you'll also get the skills for life by coming in for my introductory program. So I'm just starting this introductory program, and the introductory pricing right now is $297. When it becomes available for the rest of the public, it's going to be a lot higher, but for this introductory pricing, for coming to this training, you're going to get a discount of 50% off. And I wanted to do that for you because I'm just sick and tired of the way that birth is being taught in the medical system and in our birth culture. And I'm tired of these programs that are teaching you a little bit, but it's like good luck to you, and you don't actually get any help and support. And I'm tired of you falling into the natural birth traps. I'm tired of the fear coming up. And even if you have all the information, you go in with your birth plan and then the medical system tears it all to shreds. And you're like, well, what do I do? I want to help you. I want you to get this. Okay. So that's why it's at such a low level than what I would normally charge. And I'm just going to give you an example of my coaching packages range from $10K for 3 months and up. So by coming into this, you're really going to be able to get my whole system. You're going to get it faster. It's going to come through mostly with pre-recorded trainings. And then in addition to that, you're going to get some laser calls with me. So that means that if you get stuck at any point for the whole year that you are in the program, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to just send me a quick email, and we can actually get on a 15-minute call, and I will help you work through something. But if you're going to do that, you've got to promise me that you're going to do the work, because I don't take anyone into these programs. I'm not going to get on a call with you if you're not going to do the work. I like action takers. Okay. So if you would rather do self-study, do self-study. If you're going to do the Empowered Birth Academy, you're in the Empowered Birth Academy. I just want to be very, very clear about that. Okay. So is this for you? Well, if you want a completely natural birth and you don't want to fight an uphill battle to get it, then this is for you. I like to help the moms who want a true natural birth experience first. The reason for that is, again, because with the empowered birth method, you are more likely to be successful if you are aiming for a true natural birth. You build up your backup plans. And even if you end up having a C-section, at least you are still aiming higher than if you just follow the typical birth package that I mentioned. You're also tired of being told you're not allowed, and you're sick of being treated like you're broken until proven capable. So these are like, if you have been told you're high risk, or you have a high body mass index, or you've had C-sections, or you have a small pelvis, or you're an older mom of 35, or just anything that's telling you that you can't do this, that you can't birth without their magical interventions everywhere, you're sick and tired of that, then this is definitely for you, because I'm going to help fuel that in you to keep that fire going. And you're not going to let them trick you. Now, you also need to be under 35 weeks or not pregnant at all, but planning to be within the next 2 years. This is, again, because the earlier you are in your pregnancy, the easier it is for you to get the whole overview of the whole system and train you up. And I can get on some calls with you, and I can boost your confidence, and I can help you to know where you need to go and how to plan. If you need to talk to Jenny, she's also available. We can get on a call with her as a group thing, and we can figure that out as well. So if you do have some complications, Jenny's available. She's taking care of toddlers right now. So I'm kind of protecting her energy space at the moment. As we get more empowered birth mentors in the program, you'll have more access to their expertise and knowledge. And if you're an empowered birth ambassador by the end, then you might actually be able to help at a higher level. We do like our empowered birth ambassadors to support in our programs, and there are perks to that as well. So the other thing about that, though, as I said, you have to be willing to do the work and take your power back. I'm not going to give you your power. You got to take it. It's here. I put it right here. It's right here in front of you. You got to take it. I'm just going to put it here, and it's up to you. Are you going to pick it up? It is yours. It's got your name on it. It is your power. It has been hidden from you for so long in the medical system and in our birth culture, and they said that it didn't exist, but it is here. It is right here. Empowered birth is not me empowering you. It is you empowering yourself. So if you are willing to take your power back and you're going to do the work, because that's a component, you got to watch these trainings. And if you get stuck, you have to book a call. Otherwise, I don't know that you're stuck. Okay. You got to reach out to me. I'm not going to hold your hand through this and keep checking up on you every single moment and say, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? No. I don't have time for that. And I know you don't have time for that. And if you were a parent, you're a mom, would you rather your kid be a little bit of a self-starter and be able to see what you've got as their basic routine, instead of being like, now, did you do this thing? 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 No, I'm not going to nag at you. It is up to you to come in and be willing to do the work. None of my mentors are checking up on me every 5 seconds and asking me, did you do this training? Did you teach this? Did you do this? No, I have the onus to come into my classes every single day. And I have the onus to talk to my friends and my mentors, and mentors who are now friends, and say, hey, I did this thing and it didn't work. And they're like, well, where are your numbers? You got to be tracking what you're doing. It's the same thing in a business. You got to be tracking what you're doing. Otherwise, everything falls apart. So you have to be willing to do this. If you're not, then just read my book, get the free trainings, enjoy this for what it is, come back again, because I will teach you more. I still love you and I will still support you. But if you're going to come work with me, you're working. Okay. You're working on this. You're actually going to do this. I want an action taker, and I reward action takers. I give action takers even more than I give for free already. Okay. So if you already love what I'm giving out, I reward action takers even more. The deeper you are in connection with me, the more transformative your life becomes. It's just something that happens. So, what is this program? So, even if you're not going to jump on, if you're not so sure, or if it's like, I just want to know what this is so I can help other moms, or it's like, I'm in, I want to do this. I want to see what this is. I'm in, like, take my money, please. Like, I'll show you how you can work with me in a minute. But first, I'm going to tell you what the signature program is going to do for you. Okay. So I'm actually going to teach you all of the biggest mistakes most moms make when planning a natural birth and the biggest misconceptions on how to prove to get your natural birth and optimize your 5 pillars to get the birth you really want. And the secret techniques, I'm actually going to teach those to you in a deeper level training. There's actually a class on advocating without reading a bunch of books. You're going to get that ninja master move of the care provider to stop pushing on your birth plans. I'm going to give you actual phrases that you can say instead of just the one that I gave you. And you're going to have that fail-proof birth plan method for hands-off birth because you're going to go through that mini course that I mentioned, and you're then going to present your birth plan, and we're going to workshop that in class. So in class 1, we're going to learn all about true natural birth and the secrets, and you're going to avoid those natural birth traps that undermine your confidence. I'm going to go even deeper. I'm going to tell you the actual way that natural birth works versus how it works in the medical system. And you're going to understand by the end of it how your body actually works so you can tune into it. In class number 2, I'm going to show you more tactics on how to get past fear. Because even though I have that fear training inside the Facebook group, that's just one step. There is also a 4-step process in actually mapping your fear and challenging it and fighting it and getting past it so that you can go towards your dream. No matter how many scare tactics are used against you, you'll be able to spot when somebody's trying to scare you, and you'll be able to be resourced. You'll have the tools to be like, okay, you're saying this, but that's not true for me, and I'm not going to do this. In class number 3, once you've gotten past your fear and you understand true physiological birth, so you've tuned into your body and you've tuned into your intuition and you are no longer afraid. These 2 steps are really important. You have to have them in order, okay? Because if you don't have that, you can't do class number 3. So you need to be able to teach your partner, now that you're resourced, how to advocate for you, even if they're freaking out and terrified of something going wrong. I'm going to teach you what I learned from my mentor and best friend and relationship coach, Annie Lala, about being the relationship leader and showing you those methods on how to get your partner on board with your birth plan. I do have a little mini challenge that I did, but I've gone deeper with it. And I'm going to show you the actual tactics that I can give you so that if you have some sort of struggle and you tell me in class, hey, I tried this and it didn't work, like, I will help you. Okay. So if that's your problem and you need to get on a call with me for that, again, we can workshop that. So class number 4 is getting your care provider to follow your birth plan, even if it's against standard practice. So this is all the advocacy. This is everything that I've learned over the last 10 years in how to talk to care providers, even outside of the birth system. Because I've had times where I needed to go and get a filling for my tooth. And they're like, oh, but we want to also remove your wisdom teeth and it's going to be $2,000. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, is there a problem right now? Well, no, but it could possibly, if you don't get them removed, it could cause a problem. I'm like, but it's not causing a problem right now. I'm like, no, but it could. And I'm like, and these 2 top teeth that you have, like, they're not ever going to come through, right? Well, no, they're not, but they might put pressure on you. It's like, I'm not paying $2,000 for you to put me under anesthetic when I have 2 children at home and I'm not going to be able to be there for them and I'm going to be in pain. just so that you can stack the bill because you saw how high our insurance thing is of how much will be paid out. Nice try. Nice try. So that will allow you to recognize, like, you can use this in all areas for advocating in not just your birth, but when it comes to your child. Like maybe your care provider ends up saying you need to put your baby on formula, and you can see that they actually have a pamphlet for formula that they're trying to recommend. You don't think they don't get kickbacks from that? You don't think they don't get kickbacks for doing a C-section or an induction and getting the bottom line? You've seen the business of being born, right? I'm going to show you how to advocate for yourself and make sure that they follow your plan, not theirs. And finally, in class number 5, you're going to actually create your fail-proof birth plan beyond the birth vision. So you're going to also create your backup plans, and we're going to go through that tooth and nail to figure out exactly what you need to do in your plan. We will workshop that. If you need my direct support, again, you'll have a 15-minute call that you can book with me, and you can have up to 1 a week if you really want. But the thing is that it's for the whole year. So the classes themselves, they'll run, you'll get them, you'll have the training, you can go through it in your own time. The faster you go through it, the faster you can start booking calls. You have to go through the trainings first and understand before you book those calls. Because if you try to do it before that, you're just going to get overwhelmed. And I don't want you overwhelmed. I want you following the system. Okay? After that, when you've gone through, you book the call with me and you say, hey, I've got the question on this. Or if you have an email question, I can give you an email question. We don't even have to get on a call. But I want you to go through this. So you need to promise me, if you're going to enroll in this, that you're actually going to do this. Because there is limited seating. I'm not taking on every single person who applies. If you want to try this out, you don't even pay $297 yet. Okay? You pay nothing until you email me at Carly@EmpoweringMomsBirth and you tell me, I'd like to know more about whether I would be a good fit for this. And I will find out through an interview with you whether or not this is right for you. And then we will talk about getting you into the class and we will do the $297. But until then, you pay nothing. Okay. So there's absolutely no risk at all to you because you're not even getting this until you apply. Okay. So I'm really happy that you came in, and whether you work with me or not, it's like, I would love to work with you. I would love to help you. I am committed to you having an empowered birth, but I also recognize that even $297 might not be accessible for everyone. That's why I say, here is the entire empowered birth method. Here is your power back. You've got it. It's there. You can take it, and you can take it at any level. The reason I do this, again, is, you know what? Like back in 2019, my house burned down. Like I was trying to get out of an abusive and toxic relationship. I had saved up $2,000, but then when he cheated on me and I realized that like I'm going to be a single mom and I've got to take care of my kids, but I can't even get on income assistance until I dry up my savings. So I dried up my savings and I just gotten on income assistance, and then my house burned down and I lost everything and I had to go back with him to survive. I recognized like I had nothing. I had nothing when I met the people who showed me what I needed to do to grow my coaching practice into an actual business and to be able to teach and to be able to show up and learn how to do these webinars and be able to get that message out there. And I had nothing at all except for $150 that I had saved up as birthday money. I had no idea what I was going to spend it on. I just knew that it was like, I need to save this. And I don't know why, but this is mine and this is all I have. And I only get maybe a couple hundred of my own to spend each month after paying off all the bills because it came into my account. Because here in Canada, we have something called the childcare benefit, and it's for anybody who's in the lower income brackets. But I was still using most of my childcare benefit to pay rent with. And my partner at the time, of course, he thought all his money was his, so he hated paying bills. So I was in a really bad situation financially. I was in a really bad situation emotionally. I was in a really bad situation in my relationship. And I was trying to take care of my kids at the same time. Like anyone who is in the empowered birth community, when I first opened it up, they saw me and they thought that everything was okay. But behind closed doors, I was crying because I didn't know how I was going to be able to do this. And when I'd found my community that helped me, like they had programs that were $2,000, and I knew I would not be able to get into that. But I also knew that if I could get in at even a lower level, that would help me. And they had something that was like, you can go in backstage and talk to the person who is doing this for this challenge. You can get the recordings of this event in your inbox, and you'll be able to have that as lifetime. And you're going to actually get in front of this person. And I'm like, I could get in front of the host of this event. Like, this is important. Like, he knows his stuff. I need to get in front of him. And he did coach me. He did help me. So I went in at the lower level and I actually rose up through the ranks. This is why I also offer the Empowered Birth Ambassador program, because there are moms out there who I know might not ever be able to afford my coaching at the highest level, but I still can see that they have a dream inside of them and I can see their potential, and I raise them up in the community. I mean, Jenny, she became my second in command and my business partner because I could see her potential. And like, she was actually able, like, she could have afforded my program, but I was like, I'm going to do one better. Instead of you paying me, I'm going to, like, we're going to pay each other. We're going to work together. We're going to do this. And then we had our clients, and I brought one in on a partial scholarship and the other one paid in full. And they've just been doing amazing things now in their lives. And I want that for you. But again, it's limited seating. I'm only going to allow a small number of people to come in, because if I'm doing this for you and you're going through these trainings, I've got to be able to do my magic. And I only have so many hours in the day that I can do that. I only have so many pockets of time that I can schedule calls in. So I want to make sure that if you're in, you're not just in the program, you're also in it because you can see this vision and you want more. You want it out there. You want to do this. You believe in this. So it's not just, I want to get a natural birth and I just want to do this and have all the support and have somebody hold my hand and then I leave. If you're going to do that, just buy my program when it's available as a pre-recording. And yeah, because I want to help you to rise up in the world. I want to help you to get this message out there. I want you to be the most amazing empowered birth success story, so that the message comes through you and you say, this is my empowered birth success story. And this is how the empowered birth system helped me. And this is how it can help you. And this is how the 5 pillars of empowerment can improve your life. That's what I want. Okay. So I'm going to be very, very clear about that. Yes, it's $297 to enroll in this program. Yes, it is pre-recorded videos, 5 classes, and it's self-study. Yes, you are going to get the entire empowered birth system. And yes, you will also get the ability to work with me. I will coach you. I will help you. I will help you through any challenges. But you got to do the work and you got to be all in. And if you're not, if it's not the right time, I still love you. I still support you. And maybe it's not the right time right now, but maybe it's the right time later. And you can always send me an email, Carly@empoweringmomsbirth.com. find out what else I've got on offer, and I will help you because I believe in this system. I believe in what it's done for moms, and I want it out there. Okay? So, with that said, I'm just going to say thank you. Thank you so much for coming to this masterclass. And I hope you got a lot of really good information and that you're just processing it right now. And again, if you want to check out the Empowered Birth Academy, you can email me, Carly at empoweringmomsbirth.com. And if you are like, hey, I want to know about some of your other things, you can also email me, Carly at empoweringmomsbirth.com. Just put in the subject line whatever you're curious about. But if you are wanting to email about this program, just go Carly, empoweringmomsbirth.com and subject line program. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll reach out to you. Okay. So that will be first come, first serve. So if you are in, you only have until this replay comes down. Okay. You only have until this replay comes down. When it comes down, that means I've got my list of people and the program has started, and I'm not bringing in any more right now because it's full. And you'll be able to possibly get a pre-recorded version, but you won't get the bonus calls. Okay. So I just want that to be clear. So I'm going to have it as pre-recorded and just as is. And I'm also going to have the one where you get more support from me through the calls. But I, again, can't give that to everyone. Could you imagine if I had that out there for like hundreds or thousands of people and they all got in and they're like, they all get the laser calls? I would never, ever get to go to the beach with my kids. It would just be impossible. So to get more access to me, yes, it's $297 for now. When I run this later, it's going to be a heck of a lot more because I'm going to be even more narrow and there's going to be more people coming in. So take advantage of the pilot version of this hybrid program. And I hope to see you inside. And definitely, if you're not in the Empowered Birth community yet, come join and come support because we need as many moms as we can to understand the Empowered Birth method and what it does so that there's no more of these traumatic C-sections and inductions that don't need to happen. I'm really tired of seeing it. Okay. So thank you again. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I love you. And I'll see you soon.